But I mean, the border with Belarus is a very big border, but it's not all that useful. The Belarusians are very reluctant to get involved, even if the Russians come across the border.
And this is the last outpost before you get into Belarusian territory. Belarus has provided Russia with extensive military support. They've even transported Russian troops into the country.
They're monitoring the situation, but they say there's no evidence whatsoever that Russia is planning to use nuclear weapons.
Is Belarus the next battleground for Russia-Ukraine war? Belarus could be the next battleground in the Russia-Ukraine war. That's the fear of thousands of Belarusian men who have been summoned to military training amid growing concerns that the staunch Moscow ally could be drawn into the fighting. Is Belarus ready to join the war? What are the implications and consequences of such a move? In this video, we will dive into the details and explore the possible scenarios that could unfold if Belarus enters the war. But before we start, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to show your support for our geopolitics content. Ruslan, a 27-year-old engineer in the Belarusian capital of Minsk, says that he has heard Russian warplanes roar over his house heading to the Machulishchi airbase outside Minsk, and that Russian troops are already in Belarus. He fears that the country is gradually being turned into a military barracks and that Belarusians won't be allowed to keep watching the war from a distance for too long. Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko has welcomed thousands of Russian troops to his country, allowed the Kremlin to use it to launch the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, and offered to station some of Russia's tactical nuclear weapons there. However, he has avoided having Belarus take part directly in the fighting for now. Many analysts and political opponents argue that Lukashenko's further involvement in Ukraine could rekindle public anger against him and erode his iron-fisted grip on power that has lasted for nearly 29 years. The invasion is deeply unpopular in Belarus, which shares a 1,000-kilometer, 620-mile border with Ukraine and has many citizens with family or personal ties there. Belarusian military analyst Alexander Lukashenko said that if the country's 45,000-member army is sent into Ukraine, there might be mass refusals to follow orders. He believes that Lukashenko won't risk stirring up discontent among the military, who could turn their weapons in a different direction. While agreeing to station some of Russia's tactical nuclear weapons in his country, Lukashenko cast the move as protection against what he described as NATO's aggressive plans and Western plots against his government. However, opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya argues that hosting Russian nuclear weapons would turn the Belarusian people into hostages. The deployment of Russian nuclear weapons would make Belarus a target in case of an escalation and seriously jeopardize Belarusians' lives, says Tikhanovskaya, who fled the country after the election and has become a fierce critic in exile of Lukashenko. She believes that the two dictators have gone too far in their war games, and it will only lead to the toughening of Western sanctions. Those sanctions have crippled the Belarus economy, which shrank by a record 4.7% last year. Lukashenko hopes a 70% surge in trade with Russia last year will soften the impact and expects Belarus will profit from Moscow's orders for electronics and other high-tech components for weapons systems. Belarusian military analyst Alexander Lukashenko said Moscow is providing Minsk with cheap energy and loans and opens up its vast market in exchange for the opportunity to control the Belarusian military infrastructure. He believes that from Belarus, Russian nuclear-tipped missiles could reach Ukraine, the entire territory of Poland, the Baltics, and part of Germany. This Belarusian nuclear balcony will rattle Western politicians' nerves for a long time to come. The implications of Belarus joining the war are far-reaching. It could lead to the involvement of other countries, increase tensions between Russia and NATO, and result in severe human and economic crisis. The situation in Belarus is complex and tense, with fears that the country could become the next battleground in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Many Belarusians are already feeling the effects of the war, as thousands of men are being sent to military training amid concerns that the country could be drawn into the conflict. For Ruslan, an engineer in the Belarus capital of Minsk, the war suddenly seemed much closer when he received a summons for military training. Despite assurances that Belarus would not take part in the fighting, he can hear Russian warplanes flying over his house and fears that his country is being turned into a military barracks. President Alexander Lukashenko has welcomed thousands of Russian troops into Belarus and has offered to station some of Russia's tactical nuclear weapons there. However, Lukashenko has avoided direct involvement in the fighting so far, as further involvement could rekindle public anger against him and erode his grip on power. The situation is complicated by the fact that the Russian invasion of Ukraine is deeply unpopular in Belarus, where many citizens have personal or family ties to Ukraine. Belarusian military analyst Alexander Lukashenko has warned that if the country's army is sent into Ukraine, there might be mass refusals to follow orders. Lukashenko is unlikely to take this risk, as he fears stirring up discontent among the military. However, the recent formation of a new air defense unit in Belarus and the construction of storage facilities for nuclear weapons suggests that Lukashenko is preparing for the worst. The deployment of Russian nuclear weapons in Belarus has also raised concerns about the safety of Belarusian citizens. Opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya has warned that hosting Russian nuclear weapons in Belarus would turn the country's people into hostages. She argues that the deployment of such weapons would make Belarus a target in case of an escalation and seriously jeopardize the lives of its citizens. Tikhanovskaya has become a fierce critic. In exile of Lukashenko, who won the 2020 election amid accusations of rigging and has since faced months of protests, mass arrests, and Western sanctions. The economic impact of these sanctions has been severe, with the Belarusian economy shrinking by a record 4.7% last year. Lukashenko is hoping that a surge in trade with Russia will soften the impact of the sanctions, and that Belarus will profit from Moscow's orders for high-tech components for weapons systems. However, critics argue that Moscow is simply using Belarus as a pawn in its larger geopolitical games, providing cheap energy and loans in exchange for the opportunity to control the country's military infrastructure. Belarusian citizens, meanwhile, are caught in the middle of this power struggle and fear for their safety and their country's future. As tensions continue to rise, many are left wondering whether Belarus will become the next battleground in the Russia-Ukraine war. The implications of such a development would be far-reaching, with potential consequences for the safety and security of the entire region. It is crucial that international leaders pay attention to this situation and work to prevent further escalation of violence. What are your thoughts on the situation in Belarus? Do you think the country could become the next battleground in the Russia-Ukraine war? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this video informative, please like and subscribe for more geopolitics content. Thanks for watching, and see you in the comment section and on the next video.